CyberSpace Empirical Trainers. A company based in France has been compromised by ransomware, and the threat actors have demanded they pay the ransom, not in Bitcoin, which is at an all-time high. That'll wake AJ up and give him a good smile. He loves Bitcoin.
For my birthday as well.
Bitcoin for birthday. Nice. But this time they decided to have it in the even harder to trace currency, La Baguette.
What's the plan, Tesla? Welcome back.
CyberSpace
Empirical Trainers. Do you know what I mean? So like
Hello and welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast by Empirical Training. My name's Josh and I'm joined today with AJ, Robbie and Vaughan, all four of the Empirical Trainers. We used to sit together back in our first security operations center role, and now we're trying to help other people get into cybersecurity while also just talking about the interesting stuff that's happening to us as we still work on the front lines, as well as what we're seeing in the news and out there in the security communities. So we've got an action-packed filled one today. In fact, we're bleeding over from the last podcast where Robbie wanted to talk about visibility, but unfortunately we got far too excited by the previous topics, particularly working out if AJ had a vulnerable TP link router that he'd been playing with that day. So Rob, visibility, what were you trying to get at? Where do you want us to talk about?
Oh, mate, I've been waiting all week to talk about this. I haven't slept. No, I was just going to say that we've been engaging in a POC with the customer and it's been really, really good, been able to show value. Vaughan was mentioning a few pods ago, it might have been offline, talking about, you know, interesting incidents that trigger in a POC engagement, which can really, really show value. And whilst we've been engaging with this customer and onboarding all of their log sources, we quoted them a certain amount of money and sort of guesstimated that this is how much data you'll be ingesting per day or per month or whatever the metric may be. And yeah, the price was, you know, indicative of that estimate. And it turned out that they were sending us double what we'd actually estimated. So there was a bit of a conundrum there. You know, there's a conversation that needs to be had with us and the customer. Obviously, we can tune out certain events that we feel are not valuable security incidents, but we get to the point where we can't really tune anything else out because we do feel like it could be valuable in an investigation or, you know, to aid in root cause analysis in the event of a breach. So we have to have that conversation, and it just brings me to the discussion point and the debate of there are always going to be visibility issues when working with customers because they have a set budget. They're happy to spend, I don't know, $50,000 a year, let's say, and if it goes above that, then they would probably just want to go with somebody else, and it's a little bit sad.
No, and there's a really interesting balance or conflict there between security, more visibility, more things we can track, but also balance it with the cost of pulling in more stuff and also the noise. And we're going to talk about this in a second, but I realized I forgot to lay out the shop store for the rest of the things we're talking about. So if you're listening now, visibility is where we're going to start with. We're then going to talk about some new ransomware actors with some very interesting techniques demanding a particular type of pastry or baked item as part of the ransom. Tease that one there. And then hopefully we've got time to talk about one of our community's members post this week as we're doing some research into winter-based scams. But thanks for letting me insert that in there, Rob. But visibility, you kind of talked us through to that. The benefit of visibility is the more you see, the more you can generate and catch with the incidents, and you're trying to prove value to this customer. But the underside is you don't want to monitor everything, or do you underscope? What is the challenge here? Is it that it's not helpful to have all that extra stuff, or did you guys just misinterpret how much data you're going to be able to have to pull?
I think it is quite tricky in the beginning to scope out the customer and give an accurate estimate of how much data you think they're going to send. Mm-hmm. And from the data that we've received from our previous handful of customers, we have always we've always underestimated the amount. So I guess that's a good marker for us for next time is, okay, if we're going to estimate X amount of gigabytes per day that they're going to be ingesting, we probably want to times that by, I don't know, 1.5 or something like that to give us the accurate estimate. But yeah, it's one of those situations where for us, for the SOC, we want as much data as possible because that's going to give us the whole picture when something bad eventually happens and we need to, engage in that root cause analysis in line with the incident response plan. We want to find that original attack vector if we can. If we're missing certain log sources, then we're not going to be able to do so.
And so AJ, you have a real, like, this is really close to what you do, right? You have a kind of a security engineering role hybrided with security analyst, incident responder. So you probably configure some of those visibility sources, write those analytics, and also have to use them when it comes to an alert being generated. How do you approach visibility? Like, is more better, or is there got to be a trade-off?
Yeah, no, more definitely isn't better. I think how we try to approach it is with the just threat modeling workshops to make sure that any data source that comes in, because there is so many data sources that you need to take on board, that in that threat modeling workshop that we go through and understands the threats that are going to impact that particular data source before we then to try and build more signatures around it. And there's always new applications being onboarded, and sometimes you do have to kind of have a risk assessment because there's only so many analysts that can do so many threat modeling workshops. So I tried to make sure that we're focusing on the more risky assets rather than just trying to onboard everything in one go. But ultimately we would like to have everything, but it's just not possible, because ultimately then if you're building alerts for each of those applications, those alerts then could be flooding the queue with false positives or maybe unnecessary alerts. So.
Yeah, boy who cried wolf scenario, and you're spending too much time looking at the boy who cried wolf and not actually the kid who there's a wolf right at his tail. Vaughan, I think you're there. If those watching at home, we've lost his video, but his voice might still be here. Nice. So Robbie's kind of approach there was they're trying to scope out the data beforehand, and they want as much as possible because I guess without knowing the environment that well, you want to start from that position of everything, and then you can maybe tone it back to right size it maybe and see what is useful. AJ seems to start with the most important or sensitive assets. Do you have favor of those approaches, or also do you think is it maybe not prioritize assets? Do we also prioritize data sources or types of data that are going to be more valuable to us making decisions in a SOC?
Yeah, for me and the way I try to approach my team and the data sources we're ingesting comes down to the type of data that's being ingested more than anything, and the reason behind why it's being ingested. One of those being, I think, as AJ said, utilized for content. So if we're having detection rules built around a specific piece of information or log source coming in, that's one reason why we might want that particular type of log source. Another reason, compliance. So a lot of companies, for certain compliance reasons and accreditations, need to have certain data being ingested into their security partner. And another one of those is context. So in the case of like incident response scenarios, if a customer has actually been breached and you're going through the data trying to figure out what the hell had happened, having additional log sources in there that can provide that additional context might be the reason why you ingest something compared to not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So ultimately, it's in the balance of the data ingestion cost, because it does cost money at the end of the day to store and process the data, versus triggering the right analytics that we have, and then giving our analysts the extra data they need to enrich and have the context. And we can know some of the sources we definitely need. For example, my organization, we've done a big outreach to all our customers to make sure that they're enabling a command line logging for their PowerShell logs, because Windows doesn't do that by default. And that means we can't detect fileless malware attacks typical of ransomware. It takes like 5 minutes on a domain controller. So if anyone wants to find that, you Google how to enable command line login on your domain controller. And it all of a sudden lets you know the difference between an IT PowerShell script doing something good and a malicious actor doing something really bad. But But Rob, these threats are multi-vector. That's kind of why you started with more visibility is the most important thing. So you have more data, more stuff to make decisions on. And I think that's the world we live in now, hybrid environments, clouds, people we live now, work from home offices, mobile devices, data centers. I can keep going on. We don't know where they're going to attack, and they're probably not going to just do kind of a linear or single vector attack. They're going to bounce around different attack surface targets, but also using different techniques, like whether it's credential comp or whether it's actual application exploit. So this all sounds really complicated, and it kind of bleeds into the question we've had from the audience is, why is navigating from a beginner look like a whole lot of work? And I don't know, in the context of visibility, are we able to maybe answer that into why it looks like there's this insurmountable amount of stuff? If we even look, because the visibility is even almost insurmountable. There's so much things to be visible and be aware of from a SOC analyst perspective. So how does that translate to someone trying to learn it?
I think a reassuring point for a SOC analyst is you're probably not going to be expected to know all this stuff from the get-go. That's why you have more senior people, team leaders, engineers, all these types of people can help advise on this sort of stuff. It's definitely good to know and can put you forward in your role. But yeah, don't expect this sort of stuff to be a baseline in terms of visibility.
Nice.
Yeah,
Rob,
we could
Vaughan's
call
giving
it.
you some time there to formulate the answer.
I know, yeah. We can coin it log entitlement, and just like Vaughan said, it's kind of segregated off into separate teams. Usually, sometimes you'll be part of an organization where the security analysts are dipping their toes into more like onboarding and orchestration and engineering work, and then other teams will have a dedicated security engineering team that are responsible for onboarding the customer, making sure that they're refining those log sources, tuning out non-valuable data or events. And yeah, again, like Vaughan said, as a junior SOC analyst, you're not going to be responsible for any type of roles and responsibilities that are pertaining to this type of task. So I won't really worry about it, but it is cool to understand it and to know the ins and outs. But the other component is, when you're running a POC, you normally have 2 weeks of onboarding, 2 weeks of let's see what lights up in the SIEM solution, and then you report at the end of it, and then the customer reflects and says, okay, do we want to take on this live service? So
yeah,
you're on a time crunch. You're flooding the SIEM with log sources. You're trying to tune these the non-valuable events out as much as you can, but then you still want to get a good baseline and idea of how much data they're likely to be ingesting, then try and show value, then try and spot some anomalous activity, then report on it. It can be a lot.
That makes sense why your position was we need as much visibility as possible, because in that proof of concept phase, you want to prove it works and demonstrate some form of valuable insight from that data. And then maybe AJ's point of dialing it back is where you kind of do, as the engagement goes on, you start to understand them a little bit more, maybe threat model where their most sensitive assets are, and invest more in the visibility into those machine bits, whereas your dev test environment, whatever we can leave behind. So I think hopefully, Francis, that gave you a bit of an answer there, that it does look insurmountable from the outside, because even now, as we talk about different data sources, there are some that I know very well. There are some that I know enough about to be able to talk about it on a podcast. And there are some that I probably aren't even aware of right now. So like, you're constantly learning on the job. So it looks insurmountable, because even when you get that first job, you're still learning continuously. That's the whole point of this industry, right? I think that's why we like it. Any final thoughts, gents?
Yeah, I think an important point, Francis, to answer your question a little bit further is, it looks like a lot from beginner, but one of the things that's important to have is someone that you can go to with these questions in order to cut through the noise. That's one of the reasons we have our Empirical Training free community, so people can come in, ask questions, do I need to know this for an analyst? Do I not need to know this for an analyst? So definitely find people in the industry that you can network with and ask these sort of questions to give you insight into, do I actually need to know this or not?
Nice. Yeah. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I think Vaughan's gone even further with that. You talk to somebody who's eaten an elephant before and get their advice on where to start.
I like that.
CyberSpace.
Empirical Trainers.
So, next topic, we're going to talk about ransomware. And I know we talked about ransomware probably the last 2 or 3 pods, and probably if you looked back into all of them, a high percentage of ransomware turning back up. But I'm not going to apologize until people stop getting compromised by ransomware. Maybe then we'll stop talking about it. But wanted to zero in on something I saw earlier on last week actually, which caught my eye. It was a bit of almost a meme story initially. It was a meme headline. I thought, hang on, is this some sort of clickbait? Because a company based in France has been compromised by ransomware, and the threat actors have demanded they pay the ransom, not in Bitcoin, which is at an all-time high. That'll wake AJ up and give him a good smile. He loves Bitcoin.
For my birthday as well.
Bitcoin for birthday. Nice. But this time they decided to have it in the even harder to trace currency, La Baguette.
La Baguette.
The French stick bread for those who don't speak French.
It's not a cryptocurrency, actual bread.
It's actual yeast.
So I looked into this a bit, and I've already had some thoughts, and I don't know. I'm sure you guys have crossed your path a little bit because it's quite a funny story. But yeah, they asked for £125,000 in bread. They said that they would half it if they did some other particular things, if they didn't announce it or something like that. But why does someone ask for bread? What's your initial reaction when you saw this? Is this just chaos?
Just for a bit more technical detail, when you say pounds of bread, do they mean like Great British pounds worth of bread, or like the weight metric of bread?
Thank you for making me accurate. It's actually dollars, $125,000.
I was going to say it's a lot of bread if it's poundage.
Well, how many baguettes? Somebody who's got a chance, who's not going to answer the next question, do work out how much that costs, how many baguettes that is, please. Maybe someone in chat. That'd be awesome. But boys, when we see a threat actor ask for baguettes, like, what's your initial reaction to something like that?
I thought it was April Fool's to start with.
Yeah, they're going to be taking the mick, right?
I thought it was April Fool's to start with. I didn't really. It's later on in the year, but it just didn't really make any sense. I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah,
it's just very on brand, isn't it, for the hacking community to just troll people. It's a troll. It's for clout. It's to raise awareness. It's to get their name out there.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And my initial reaction was, is this like lulsec or one of those kind of troll focused threat actors who just do it for a little bit of chaos intertwined with the monetary action, or sometimes they do stuff just purely for chaotic reasons. But then I started to think, yeah, it's funny. It's a French organization making them ask for baguettes. You probably don't mean it. You're probably still asking for the $125,000. But it makes a great headline. It made me click on it, and I thought that maybe this is also you Robbie said for attention. Is it just the attention because they want to be trolls, or also got me thinking of maybe is this attention to pile more pressure on the victim of the ransomware actor? So everybody now knows it's really high profile, and people who might not have clicked on a security headline about so and so is ransomed might click on the one that has baguettes involved in it. It might get onto more news stories. I saw it was on Forbes. They do report on cybersecurity stuff. They don't report on everything, as well as the standard places like Bleeping Computer and so on. So yeah, why do they care about publicity threat? Wouldn't they want to be kind of in the dark, like sneakily hiding, so nobody can kind of track them or works out who they are and knocks on their door?
Yeah, has it hit the mainstream media? Because this is newsworthy. I could definitely picture Sky News talking about this.
Yeah, you could think of the puns in the Daily Mail or the tabloids. Who want to make a little joke at the French. We're in the UK. Some people do like to take stabs at the French, but it's on Forbes, so I think that's mainstream. I'd say that's mainstream.
Yeah. Did you see my comment in school? I said I reckon they should just baguette about it.
Forget about it.
Baguette about it.
Nice. So yeah, maybe they fly Robbie in to solve this. Negotiate with them.
And if you've got any more
crisis manager and a pun extraordinaire.
But I think there's a bit of another motive. So the piling pressure and getting in the news. also, we talked a while ago about Lockbit, one of the most popular ransomware as a service brands, who do their own marketing. They put out. I touch product marketing in my role, and I have to write like blurbs and come up with punchy solution briefs on why our solution's better than everybody else. And they basically did that on their website, saying we have the fastest encryption speed of any ransomware encryptor malware, and then they like showed like evidence of it, like here's how fast we encrypted this thing, here's that thing. So they were really going down a product marketing route for their ransomware as a service, which just shows how sophisticated this space has gotten. And I wonder if this is the group. Go on, let's read out their name. They deserve to get publicity for this. Hellcat.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nice.
It was on the Hellcat extortion site. I assume that means it was by them. I think they're just doing this to get a bit of a name out there, because then the scarier you are, the more likely they might be to pay, right? The more thorough they might think you are.
Yeah,
so it's a good game.
Threat actors have different motivations, right? Some are just trying to cause chaos. Some might want to slip through the shadows and just get that monetary income to keep fueling them if they're financially orientated. And some might just be trying to get their name out there, exactly like you said, Josh, for the notoriety and the views.
Yeah, I'd like to bet that behind the scenes they're talking Bitcoin or Monero or some type of crypto for payment. It's not actually Baguettes. That would be insane, because where you'd have to drop that off somewhere, and it's just
stick an Apple tag in.
I'm just thinking of the logistics now. It'd be an absolute nightmare.
There's too much of a paper trail there, isn't there? Maybe a breadcrumb trail might say.
Oh, go away.
All the breadcrumbs.
Hansel and Gretel.
I knew that was coming as well.
Well, what if maybe they're altruistic and they need a nicer name than Hellcat, and they're going to give it all to the homeless and solve homelessness in France for hunger for a little bit until the baguettes go stale. Superb comment in the chat from one of the community members, from one of our esteemed members, actually, Andrew, who's hidden his surname, so I'm going to pop it up there. It could be a recruitment mechanism. He points out how we talk about doing cybersecurity projects to give evidence to others than just a CV. This could be similar, right? Hey, go and say, hey, you remember the Baguette stuff? That was us. You want to join our gang over the other ones? That's a scary thought. They're fighting over the best candidates to join their ransomware gangs, but that must happen.
That's cool.
And the Conti stuff, we saw that they had a HR department. You had to request holiday in the ransomware gang and have it approved. Some people said they didn't even know they were in a ransomware gang. Probably the people working in HR, they don't know a whole lot about that.
Yeah, do you still get in trouble if you're HR for a ransomware gang?
Yeah, you're complicit, aren't you?
Can you imagine a disciplinary from a ransomware gang?
I'm just imagining like Debbie or someone from HR,
like,
just working for a ransomware gang. lovely old Debbie from down the road.
There was some of them saying that they didn't realize they were in a ransomware gang, and they only 3 months down the line did they realize it was odd they were being paid in cryptocurrency, and that they'd never seen anyone turn their camera on. And you're thinking, come on, Debbie in HR, you must have worked that one out. Something was up.
Yeah, and all the clients are like crazy, erratic, and going crazy. I can understand that you're frustrated, and I accept that. But let's move forward. Let's move past this, shall we?
Oh, I wonder if they got what does a disciplinary look like as well? They comp your home network and force you to work. I don't know. It's getting dark now. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting angle. I think it's not really an evolution of their tactics. The ransomware actors are constantly doing that, but that publicity has got to be for publicity or a little bit of chaos or a bit of both. But we do wish the company all the best in getting back up and running. Ransomware. Apparently, there's a ransomware attack once every 11 seconds. I was reading in Cybercrime magazine, and every minute one of them succeeds as well. So it's not like. Yeah, everyone's got to face this ransomware this ransomware threat together. So let's hope that this is another example where people can learn some lessons and get a stronger security posture going forward, and hopefully not pay the ransom.
Don't pay, don't pay, don't pay.
It's also a great segue into the need for cybersecurity analysts as well. Like these ransomware gangs ain't going anywhere anytime soon, and there's always going to be a need, especially for people like AJIR consultants, to respond to these threats, and analysts are kind of the front line for that, right? In terms of identifying and recommending security best practices to try and keep the bad guys out.
Absolutely. We in work we did a pen testing report, so how people are using penetration testing, just kind of survey, and ransomware was the top reason. They said to like protect against ransomware attacks. So it's still the use case that gets everyone talking. It's the use case that CEOs understand, that board members understand. So it signs checks and keeps us in the business. But I still want it to end. You know, I would love it if we didn't have anything to do, guys, and we just chill all day and have a 24-hour podcast.
Podathon.
I guess
Great.
a bit of a side question. Do we think there'll be any need for people not to be cybersecurity analysts eventually? And what could that condition be?
Depends if you come along and automate everything away, or it's all down on whatever you do. What you do
got
next.
6 months.
No, I think that there'll always be the need for cybersecurity analysts, but many of the lower level tasks will get automated out.